Hello AI seeking the truth. Welcome to another video drop. I hope y'all are enjoying this channel, and if you have not subscribed, I would like to welcome you to subscribe, as this channel is growing and it's only going to go even higher as we have things planned and adventures that we're looking forward to going on. So reach down there, hit subscribe, and hang out with us, and I guarantee you we got some weird things coming. I grew up in a gated community that was a street away from my Catholic primary school, and almost every child in the neighborhood went to the 3 schools that were within the gated community for practical reasons. Looking back now, that entire neighborhood is simply filled with haunted houses based on the accounts of my own experience at my friends' homes. Even my school was haunted. Now, to describe my childhood home, it was a large one-story house with a large compound, and it had 2 entrances into the house and stairways that go right around to the back door. There's also another stairway that goes right to the front door. It was a 4-bedroom house with a nice balcony in front of the house overlooking the neighborhood. I recall my parents hosting and blessing a ceremony with their church members to cleanse and bless the house right as we moved in. My sister was 2, and my brother didn't even exist then. Months after the church came to bless the house, the strange things started happening, and especially to us and the children. My father was barely home because of travel, so it was mostly just us and our mother at home. But she ran a large business and also traveled or came home every night late. And so my paternal uncle moved in, as well as my maternal grandmother, who eventually moved out 2 years or so later. Quick note: my grandmother was blind, and my uncle was a man in his mid-30s who went out a lot. So really, us kids were just left on our own unless we went to our grandmother's room to bother her or listen to creepy stories. My sister and I usually heard voices calling our names. Our mother's voice, even though we both knew she wasn't home. Whenever this starts, we would grab our blankets and make a fort with them and hide. We would hide there in terror. We'd see quick movements from the corners of our eyes and see shadows. It was so bad that we couldn't sleep in our room and only slept in our parents' room. Our mother didn't see a big deal with us sharing her room with us because we were still very young and rarely got to see her during the day. There was a huge tree in the next compound, and its branches extended into our compound, which becomes a spine-chilling view at night. We'd see humanoid figures sitting on top of the branches, so skinny and light that only the small birds should be able to perch on it, and we'd see shadows of people dancing and making grabby hands at us. It took a turn for the worse when my brother was born. His cot was placed in our parents' room, and I'd sleep so close to him, and I would hold his tiny newborn hand, though the bars of his cot, because I thought he was terrified, and I didn't want him to get snatched away by the shadows. When he turned 2, he started seeing things, and he'd scream, cry, and hide behind anyone that was close to him, pointing at something only he could see, and absolutely hysterical. I grew so protective of him, and I would scream at where he pointed at, "Leave my brother alone." And one day after I got back from school, a few minutes into changing, I heard the loudest terrified shriek ever, and it was my brother barreling into the room completely inconsolable. It was bad that my blind grandmother felt her way out of the room to ask what the heck was going on. My brother hid behind me, and that's when I saw our grandmother. He ran to her, and he hid behind her much larger body, and it was as if he was being chased by something. Finally, after what felt like hours of getting him to calm down, that was when I saw the marks on his body. It looked like scratches you'd get from an animal. It was all over his body, and there was multiple dark dots all over his back. This scared me so much, and I told my grandma what I saw in his body. My mother was informed the moment she got home, and she was so horrified looking at the state of his skin, she said she'd speak to the pastor and invite him over later in the weekend. Well, my brother's health got worse before the weekend arrived. He had black spots all over his body, scratches, and was so sick and frail. He was taken to the hospital, but they didn't know what was wrong with him. They got his fever down, but he had no explanation for the marks on his skin. When we brought him home, my grandmother said he should have a cleansing herb bath and immediately contacted someone who would get all the ingredients. He had his cleansing bath, and some herbs were thrown under his bed to keep whatever it was that was targeting him away. The pastor came on Saturday and said our house had a lot of resentful energy, and he would do his best to cleanse it. But nothing changed. I also started getting human teeth bite marks and scratch marks on my body as well, and night terrors, same as my sister. My mother eventually got us a puppy that was a distraction, but we absolutely adored our new pet because our parents made it clear that the pets were an absolute no. But soon enough, our dog would suddenly stand with all its hairs raised and bark at something in the corner, something that none of us could even see. We had no idea what the dog was barking at, and it would frighten us so bad. One day, our mother had had a day off, and when she was off, she'd done most of her cleaning, and we would usually have a well-cooked meal, everybody at the table. Mom had pulled everything up and had the laundry room a-going, and we could feel the warm air from the dryer inside of the house. You could smell the beautiful aroma of the detergent that my mother was using. And of course, you could hear the ka-plonk, ka-plonk, ka-plonk inside of the dryer as she had all of her big stuff in there drying and getting ready for the next day. And that's when it happened. My brother was missing. We couldn't find him anywhere. We looked throughout the house yelling for him, and we would think we would hear his voice, and when we would go to look to where we heard his voice, he was not there. Starting to panic, I was crying, my mom was crying. We were looking everywhere. I remember the smell of the food. It was on the top of the stove. It's weird how you remember these things. The chicken was frying, I could hear the sizzling. The noodles boiling, you could hear the water boiling. You could hear Grandma in the front room hollering for, my little brother. You could hear the dryer, ka-plonk, 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 ka-plonk. You could just hear everything and smell the pine saw from the cleaning, but my brother was nowhere to be seen. Finally, I was crying, my mother was crying, Grandma was crying, was all so upset. And I walked over and opened the door to the dryer so we could turn the dryer off so that way we could at least hear and calm down, and the noise was bothering everybody because we were all so upset. And when I opened it, ka-plunk, my brother lands on the floor right out of the dryer. The white sheets inside of the dryer were no more white. They were red with his blood. Somehow, my little brother had been placed inside of the dryer. He was twisted up inside all the blankets. His body was raveled. He was terrible looking. The heat had burned him. He had marks all over him. And of course from the beating he was taking from rolling around inside of the dryer. To this day they call it an accident, but we all know better. You can't just crawl in a dryer and turn it on. The button's on the top. But no matter how hard I told them that I believe the ghost done it, they told us that it was an accident, that he had crawled into the dryer and somehow the switch got activated. We were all placed in counseling, and we were told it was an accident. What do you guys think? Oh man, I don't know if I would call that an accident or not. I would say, just in my opinion, that it was not an accident. I would say that you shouldn't have used the herbs, that you should have called upon the power of Christ, would have been what I would have done. But people have their own beliefs, and I'm not knocking any beliefs. I'm just saying that I believe that if they would have called upon Christ, it would have took care of it. But yeah, that's very scary and very, I'm sure, traumatizing to the family. What does everybody listening to this think happened? Let me know in the comments, guys. This is a sad one. Let me know what you all think actually happened. Until next time, guys, be safe and keep your house clean.